All right. Well, welcome everyone. We are here today with Kelly Crandell. He earned a double bachelor's degree in music performance and music theory from the University of Michigan before studying music composition at the San Francisco Conservatory of Music. After winning, and I think this is how you say it, Kelly, is Chanticleer's. Is that correct?
Chanticleer.
Chanticleer's first young composer competition in 2002. Hinshaw Music published his winning piece, which garnered him attention from a commission from the San Francisco Symphony and Chorus. Winning prizes in competitions worldwide from choral competition, his work is released on iTunes, and he has had international radio play. He moved to Denmark and earned a master's in orchestral conducting, leading an orchestra and chorus and performance of Beethoven's Ninth in the Danish Radio Hall for his degree recital. He then moved to New York City, where he was a choral accompanist at Rutgers University, coaching opera singers and teaching at two universities before switching to his parallel career of working in design full-time. His design background grew out of his music publishing through web design to photography and video production for Microsoft, HP, and Intel, and he currently works as a landscape designer in San Francisco while remaining active with various musical activities, including music directing, musical theater, and children's choirs. So Kelly, thank you so much for being here today. And if you don't mind, feel free I know I did a little bit of an introduction, but just give us a little bit more background on who you are and what you're currently up to.
Okay, thanks for having me, Susanna. It's nice to meet you all. And I see Ashley, Maya, and Maria. If you guys, I'd love to know what your majors are if you want to type them in the chat. I'm really interested in knowing my audience. The first rule of communication, right? Know thy audience. So yeah, I'm kind of a polyglot when it comes to careers, and that comes out of this idea: necessity is the mother of invention. So when you're in the arts, you're always looking for ways to survive. So you end up doing a lot of different things, and that's kind of how my career path made this very winding kind of path all the way through from music to design. Been quite a very different path than what people normally are used to, where you go to school, you study it, and then you start in a lower level job, and then you climb the ladder, and then you gain skills and all that. It's been a very almost spherical career path for me, where you go over here and do this, and then something somewhat related way over here and way over here. All these very different projects and careers and jobs that have been part-time, full-time, short-term, long-term, everything in between.
Kelly, specifically, I work with a lot of music students who are trying to figure out what is the world really like, going from your degrees in music out into actually working in the field. And of course, you worked all over the country and in Denmark as well. Can you talk to the students just a little bit about what was that transition like for you, going from your education to actually working in the field? And then we're going to get to your design as well.
Okay, sure. And I see Maya wrote her degree program as graphic design. So that's what I ended up. That was my transition point, was actually graphic design. So as a composer, I was always composing on the side because I love to improvise on the piano, and then I would write things. I grew up Mormon in church, and my church would let me write things for the church choir or for instruments to perform during church services all the time. So I got a lot of exposure and experience writing for church, and got performances often. And because I did this often enough, I started getting commissions for little small things. People would pay me to write this arrangement of maybe a popular church hymn. So my life in church music actually has been pretty strong and pretty consistent. But the transition into design, where I am now, the real transition point was music publishing. So I got into music publishing because I'm a composer. So as a composer, you use the software Finale or Sibelius, different kinds of software. and you learn how to, lay that out on a page and so forth. And I was working as an editor. I got a job as an editor for a Christian music publishing company, and they needed a cover for choral music. Well, I'm like, okay, well, I'll try to design a cover. So this is the idea: necessity becomes the mother of invention. I learned in design, actually at that time it was Quark Express. I learned Quark Express in order to just put some images together and make a cover with text. And then, we had to send that off to the choral printer, for the sheet music. So, okay, well, I had to learn that, you have to add a little extra on all of the edges. We call that a bleed, so that they can cut the paper and the color goes all the way to the edge. That's called a bleed. So that's what I learned for that. And then I learned that there are 4 different kinds of inks, cyan, magenta, yellow, and black, CMYK. And you learn that printing is different than what you see on your screen, what the color processes are for each one. So little by little, just because of music publishing, I started to get into graphic design. Well, we had to put that cover onto the website, and we didn't like how the website looked, so I just got into Photoshop and I started playing with designs of the website. And the web designer, he was really great with the programming aspect of it, and I knew absolutely nothing about programming, but I kind of played around with it and I found a nice design for our website. So he implemented that design, and it was beautiful for the time. So suddenly I went from graphic design into web design. Just in one job already, I was kind of passed around, and it was rooted in my music publishing, my composition. So I started to grow these skills, and that was my transition point. I slowly built each one of them just on my own. There's so many resources and so many things you can do to teach yourself. I don't know if you know the movie Good Will Hunting. Um, you're working at a university, but he says, why spend $100,000 on an education you could have gotten for $1.50 in late fines at the local library? So I love my education. Overeducated, I would say. I spent way too many years in school because I love learning and I love education. It's made me a richer person. But most of what I've done with my career has been from self-learning. And graphic design was my transition point from music to graphic design. And I think Maya's going to see this. Graphic design is kind of the center of the universe when it comes to design. All design can come out of graphic design. So if you look around you, look at your room, look at your computer screen, look at Suzanne's headphones, look at the clothes you're wearing, look at the floor, look at the light. Every single thing that your eye touches that is man-made has been designed by someone. Don't forget that. If you realize how ubiquitous, how omnipresent design is in our lives, and how it's probably the most important thing. Design is huge, and there's so many possibilities for design you can do. Yes, Maya, absolutely. The graphic design is the center of the universe. Everything comes from graphic design. You can design anything from graphic design, and I'll talk a little bit later about what I'm doing next. So, yeah, that's my transition.
That's fantastic. Thank you. I want to open it to the students if they have any questions. Again, feel free to turn on your microphone or write some things in the chat box. I can ask questions all day. But I want to make sure you guys get your questions answered.
Ashley, let's hear from you. What do you have a question? Maria? Maya? Well, I'll just, if you want to ask a question, feel free to type it as well, and then we'll get to it. Suzanne was talking about music students, and one thing I wanted to talk about if either anyone who's watching this is a music student, my degrees are 2 bachelor's degrees in music for music theory and flute performance, and I sort of minored in piano. It was an unofficial minor. And then I went on to composition and orchestral conducting, and then did doctoral studies in orchestral conducting, which I actually stopped after 3 years, or after 2 years of a 3-year program, um, because I got a design job full time. And I decided one day I wanted to buy a house. Um, so as a musician, a lot of people don't realize this if you're not a musician. Musicians train harder, longer, and they work more passionately, and they work on themselves more deeply than I feel, than almost anyone, any other type of career. Think of people who are studying communications or engineering. They're learning about something external, and they're learning math and numbers or law or facts that they have to memorize. And anybody can be a parent. Anyone can memorize facts. It takes a little bit more to be able to take all this information and then organize it and do something with it. Okay, so there's that. But musicians, you're constantly working on yourself. That's the first thing. You are the instrument, not the thing you play. I was a flute major. You are the instrument, and who you are inside, how your ears are. There's a certain level of awareness, self-awareness, and torture. Years of torture. Scales are torture, but they're healing in a certain way. How many of you during this lockdown, this coronavirus awfulness, are looking forward to doing those scales because you feel so much better? So musicians are the best people on the planet from my experience. I met people in Paris traveling, and instant best friends because we were all musicians and speak the same language instantly. Because we've all gone through this torture together of what it means to be a musician, that self-development. But there's an amazing self-development that happens as a musician. And because we're around other musicians, we see we're all the level is flat. We see ourselves as being normal to everybody else. But to be a musician, what do you have to do? You have to listen, you have to look and watch, you have to be aware, you have to think retrospectively, you have to think in advance. You're a sphere of all time and all experiences all at once. And that's a very high level thing to be. So while we are equal with all other musicians, in the rest of the world, musicians are higher functioning. So we do really great work. It's so easy for us to transition to other things. And I found it very easy for me to learn new software. After spending years practicing the flute for 8 hours a day to get into Juilliard, to get into all these schools, that was so much time. But then it took me only like 3 hours to learn Chord Express. So that was nothing, and most people hem and haw. It's difficult. So thank you, Maria. I see job studies. What is the transition like moving city to country for job opportunities? That's Maria's question, or for job studies. Okay. Ashley's saying, I was interested in your transition because I'm a cybersecurity focused, but I love writing, screenwriting mostly. I have done work as screenwriting, Ashley, and design of human-computer interaction studies, and I have had and designed some website for class project. That's so great. You're a polyglot too. Look at you, Ashley. That's great. I have been trying to figure out how to use my major to work more in something I actually enjoy, which is not cybersecurity. Did you have an idea where you want to end up, or did you find the things you enjoy in the operating? I have trouble deciding which direction to go. Start on the planner, so it's a bit difficult. That's such a great question, Ashley. Okay, I'll take them in order first. So Maria's question: what was the transition like moving city to country for job opportunities? So I have to say, when I moved abroad for the first time, I moved to Belgium, which was traumatic. There was so much cultural shock because in my eyes, Belgium is very dysfunctional. They have two cultures inside Belgium. They have the North, which they speak Dutch, and then the South they speak French, and then they kind of mash them together in Brussels, and then there are a lot of immigrants in Brussels from Arabic-speaking countries in Africa. So it's just a big mismatch, and they don't seem to like each other, and they don't seem to function very well, and they don't pick up poo on the sidewalk. So you can't walk down the sidewalk and enjoy looking at the city. You're looking at the ground the whole time. So there are different ways. It was a big culture shock. My next big city was Copenhagen after Belgium, which was a much better situation. It was great. Riding your bike all the time, everywhere. I got into much better shape, lost all this weight, and much better. But I think if I went back to Belgium, it would be a better experience. This initial culture shock. So living in different countries, I found to be easier than most Americans. Why? Because being a musician, what languages are you working with? Italian, French, German, all the time. So those words that you're seeing, oh, I saw this in German all the time, all of a sudden I see something similar. It's called a cognate, right? If you study languages, I see cognates in Dutch and German, and then it's also in French, and I studied French because of my music degree. So I think my transition to other countries was easier than most Americans. It was difficult to work in Europe because they protect their jobs for their people. But in Denmark, they were kind of googly-eyed about an American conducting them. So I ended up conducting brass bands in Denmark and became a clinician and was touring all around Scandinavia giving classes to amateur brass bands. Because the first year that I was conducting brass band, I took the second place winner that had been winning second place for the last 10 years, and they finally won first place under me. So all the brass bands were like, "Oh, who is this American?" So that was easier, but it was low level kind of work. I'm gay. I was married to a man, and he got a really great job there in Denmark. So I didn't have to worry too much about money at the time. So that's my answer to Maria's question. It's kind of a mixed bag. It definitely changes you for the better to live in another country. You don't learn as much about the other country as you learn about yourself. You learn more about yourself. And I did do Maria a master's degree in conducting in Denmark, which was free at the time. It's no longer free. Their system is very different for exams. Everything is oral exams, which I hate. It's so on the spot, and there's no right answer, and their grading of you seems very subjective. It's kind of a popularity contest with the professors. American system, I really like a lot better. There's a syllabus, there are tests, there are right and wrong answers, even in the essay questions, there are right and wrong answers. So for Ashley, the polyglot who can do so many things, look at you, you're so great at cybersecurity. You know, I think it's interesting to try to piece together everything that you do. Try to piece it together into some sort of a genre. You may find something very specifically that collects all of your skill set together. If you go to monster.com and Indeed.com, don't try to get a job from those. It's a waste of time. You get fake Indian recruiters calling you 10 times a day for job interviews that go nowhere. But if you look at those kind of job postings, it's like senior director, manager of this, the jobs are very almost obvious that you'd think. And so as a student, your impression of what the job market is things that are obvious. And oh, they need this degree for this degree for this. I'm going to tell you my current job and maybe 4 other previous jobs have all come from Craigslist. I live in San Francisco. Craigslist was started here, but I even got a great job doing video production for Microsoft, Hewlett Packard, Intel, from Craigslist in New York City. And it paid very well. At that time, it was $95,000. That's an annual salary, which is sort of normal for New York City, given how expensive New York City is. Current salary here is $150,000 with landscape design. To give you perspective, San Francisco is a little bit more expensive, but it works really well. The pay grade at this point for this job. And how did I get there? Just kind of piecing together, following a chain of events, graphic design to web design to photography to interior design to 3D rendering to I followed a chain of events, and once you're doing 3D rendering and outdoor design or interior design, designing real spaces. I worked for an office company, ergonomic furniture company. That was my job that pulled me away from finishing my doctorate. I was working for an ergonomic furniture company, designing real things, and then that's what led to landscape design. So now I don't have to sit in an office all day long like I did with the ergonomic furniture company, and I get to go out. And I'm going to be honest with you, the landscape design job that I'm doing, while it's chaotic, it ranges from 15 hours a week to 30 hours, but it's full-time. So I have a lot of flexibility. I work a lot from home. It's really a great job in that regard. And that doesn't mean all landscape design that way. It's just nice. But piecing together, I'm looking at what you put there, Ashley, of your background, human-computer interaction studies. Here I am in San Francisco, which is the headquarters of Twitter and Google and Facebook and Salesforce. Salesforce in the Fortune 50 companies of the world is often number one company to work for the world. Hi, Kirsten. Who else? Serena. Hey. So all of these companies would take a background like yours. Google loves people with varied backgrounds. Something interesting to know about Google, they're actually quite easy to hire people, but they hire them first on a contract basis. They hire you on a short-term contract. This gives them the ability to end the contract without any much penalty on their side, and without losing too much. And they don't have to do benefits and commit to you in the same way that they would what we call a W-4 employee, which is a full-time employee. W-2, W-4 is the form that you get for your tax. W-2. So Google, they have 60,000 full-time employees worldwide, but 200,000 contracted employees. So it's skewed toward testing people out and seeing how you're doing, and then they can accordion it out in case there's greater need. They can add people or subtract people on a dime without much penalty. But then the core is this 60,000. So I did have a friend who was a linguistics major, so he's working as a linguist for Google Voice, and for the on your phone, when you say hey Alexa or all those, to be able to analyze the phonemes of different dialects and be able to program that into voice dictation, for example. He was doing that on contract, and he was just hired into full-time, and he's remote, and he can live wherever he wants. So he travels. He's now in Los Angeles. He was in San Francisco. So this coronavirus is really cool. It's forcing a lot of companies to go remote, which offers a lot of flexibility. This is my dream, is to be able to work wherever I am in the world. Live in different countries. I'm working on my Spanish every day. So let's see. I'm seeing some feedback here, Maria. Traveling I never thought about how traveling can be really easier because of the polyglot nature of language in different countries. Absolutely, Maria. No problem. such a great comment. Feeling you're warm and fuzzy. Thank you. And Ashley, you're writing. So did you change your mind as you went? Okay. All right. So what you said, Ashley, about you being a planner, I'm not a planner. I'm a survivor. And that's how, as a musician, I've gone from so many different jobs because I said, I took the American approach. Americans are famous for saying, if somebody asks you, do you know Excel? And whether I know Excel or not, I said, yeah, I know Excel. Sure, I can do Excel. And in 10 minutes, because I'm a musician and know how to work super hard, I learned Excel in an hour. There we go. I can do basic things in Excel now. And that, that has grown over the years, and I'm much better at Excel. I can do some pretty complicated things in Excel. But that's me just trying to survive, and that's an American thing. We have such a can-do attitude. Having lived in Europe, they're very pragmatic and they're very honest. If they know something, they will be honest about it. If they don't know something, they will be honest about it. They know something, they will say, I don't know it that well. And an American will say, yeah, I can do that. And I think that's great. We have such an open, we take more risks. We have an open mentality. So, so for me, Ashley, I'm a survivor, and I took opportunities as I needed to in order to survive. For me in particular, church work has been very consistent. I have different kinds of spirituality in my own beliefs, but I was raised Mormon, so it's a Christian base. So I get the Christian theology, and so I worked in all kinds of Christian religions, mostly Protestant. I was a church singer in Denmark, and that's paid very consistently. And he thought I spoke Danish because I had a friend for my audition sing to me in Danish. So I transcribed everything into IPA. So if you're a musician, IPA is the International Phonetic Alphabet. Singers learn this. I transcribed, but my Danish friend sang to me in IPA, so I replicated it back with a perfect accent, and I won the audition. He thought I was Danish because of how I sang. So he gave me a chance, and I learned more on the fly as I went. So it's really survival. Church work has always been there. I currently teach children in a children's choir, and of course, this time is a little bit strange and difficult. So I'm going to attempt the virtual choir thing with my kids. Super fun. My kids are the light of my life. It's really awesome. Let's see. Reading some of your comments. So also, Ashley, the types of jobs I was starting to talk about, I tend to digress. The types of jobs that you see on websites are very obvious, but with your background, you could easily apply for Google with many of their types of positions, and be confident that if you don't know something, you can learn it. You can learn it pretty easily. Ashley, I don't think you wrote me your cybersecurity. There are lots of different levels. You could get in cybersecurity or doing video production for the cybersecurity team. You'd never guess that a job like that exists, but with 260,000 employees in Google, you bet there's a job like that. I'm friends with a video creative director for Google. He's about to retire, so those jobs are available. So don't be afraid to follow, kind of piece together everything that you like to do. The key is obviously having a portfolio. So if you love to do something, then do it, and do it for free a little bit so you can get some references and get some experience, so you can learn in a company setting, how do they do that? And you don't need to find an internship in order to do it. Say, just approach a company that you like and say, I want to do this project. Can I do it for you for free? And then instantly you've done it for free, and you've got a good reference that they're going to give you a good reference, and you've got something to add to your portfolio. So that's one of the greatest benefits of being in a university is you have a lot of resources available, including video equipment, spaces, lighting, sound equipment. You have other collaborators who also need to build their portfolio. So being in a university is an incredible opportunity to build your portfolio. How did I get the design work for Microsoft, Hewlett Packard, Intel? My portfolio. And how did I develop my portfolio? Just doing. You just do projects in the end. I did many things for free. I was doing photography for opera singers. And I found a photojournalist student at NYU who was also trying to build his portfolio, and we both learned studio lighting together. I put in some money for some lighting, which wasn't too expensive. I had a space available to be able to use. He ended up winning Best Photo of the Year as a photojournalist for the Ebola virus for his photo of Ebola for the Wall Street Journal. So this young kid, he was so amazing. He started out with me doing little photo shoots with opera singers that I was doing for free so I could expand my portfolio. I learned lighting, I learned styling. I'd go shopping at Neiman Marcus for expensive dresses, with these opera singers, which we return after the photo shoot. So we were very careful to not get makeup on it and make sure that they were in perfect condition. You learn different things about each business. Neiman Marcus is owned by Saks, which has a year for a return policy on any clothing, even if it's in bad condition. So, how about that? Any of you, maybe Serena, you look like a beautiful singer. You're the only one with the video. If you ever need a photo shoot with a dress, this is something that I learned. You learn so many different things, but just by doing it for free. So therefore, when I was doing video direction for Microsoft and Intel, I could style the people as well, clothing wise. So it's these little skill sets that you pick up and what's important. When something's not fitting right and there's you want to shape it a little bit better, to have clothespins on site so you can put it back here, to shape the clothing on site in a moment. They look tailored. So, there's just so much you can do just by doing it for free, offering your services in order to get experience and in order to get grow your portfolio and to get references. But I wish I had done this. This is my best advice for you all. I wish I had done this while in university, because you have far more resources available to you for free. You don't have to pay for them, or you don't have to pay much for them. And you have collaborators who are studying and who are going to try to do this with you, and they're going to do it for free too, and they're going to benefit from their a sound designer studying sound or technology in your school. She is going to need to build their own portfolio as well. So the work that you collaborate on together is portfolio building. It's such a great opportunity. What else? Ashley says, thank you for your insight. That makes sense. I'm always afraid if I don't meet the qualifications for a job, but I love to learn the skills. So it's helpful to know that there are places to come with a varied background. Now I see a question here from Serena. I love your last name, Berenger, because it sounds like the wine Berenger, and I love wines. Spelled differently though. What are your experiences like in composing? Well, composing. I started composing when I was younger, improvising on the piano, and writing things for church. And then I said this earlier, people eventually started to pay me to write things. I did, after my bachelor's degree was a double major, music theory and flute performance. I got into music theory because I tested out of all of the required music theory. Why? Because I studied piano before, and I was composing, and I figured out music theory, so I tested it out. I still have 30 credits to fill with something, so I'm like, okay, well, I just get a double degree in music theory. So music theory, part of that degree was composition classes, and my composition teachers encouraged me to do more of it because I had a natural talent for it. Talent is time and motivation. That's all talent is, folks. Time and motivation. I had the time when I was young, and I had the motivation. So that's how I developed skills in composition. Anybody can do anything. It's just time and motivation. That's what talent is. So as I got more skilled with composition and through the classes and the feedback, I was encouraged. I applied for a composition degree at San Francisco Conservatory of Music, and David Conti, who teaches there, was very encouraging to me. And I had no idea how I compared to other students, but I ended up being one of the top students there, winning composition competitions because I was a flutist. Playing in Broadway shows, I was playing oboe and saxophone and bassoon, and I learned all of the instruments. When I was actually 13 years old, I was living in a tiny town in Arizona because my mother was sick for a year, and I lived with my sister in this tiny town. And the music school, or the, the middle school, was across the street, and I started to play the violin, and the teacher said, "Oh, if you want to learn the other instruments, you can take them home." So I took home the violin, viola, cello, bass, and that year I learned all those instruments. The following year I learned all the other instruments. So because of this, Serena, I learned the fingering for all the instruments, how they worked, kind of how their intonation. I even have scars here on my upper lip because I went with my brother and our neighbor. We went outside Christmas caroling to our neighborhood with trumpets, and I got a blister. So I learned all of the instruments at that time, which really, when I got accepted to this program, I didn't know how I compared to the other students. I knew so much more just because talent is motivation and time. So I spent the time and motivation to learn all these different things. Just it was natural to me. It was interesting. Um, so composition led me to do what? Record my pieces and work in recording. So when I was working as a creative director for video, I could sit next to the sound engineer, and we could diagnose different things, and I helped him to get the very best sound. Take out a chunk, and how they're like voiceovers, and it's hello, how are you today? And we were able to switch things so it sounded perfectly. And he was like, "Whoa, you really work well in sound." Well, when I was in Denmark, they have an incredible recording, like a sound engineering program there, and the top microphone company in the world is DPA. It's Danish, so a lot of those recording students are working for DPA as kind of a internship or study. So that opportunity to record I recorded my master's recital Beethoven 9 with not so great musicians. And this recording engineer, Meta, her name, she ended up using 40 microphones for the performance, and was able to adjust everything so it sounded like the New York film. It was amazing what she did with it. And lo and behold, 5 or 6 years later, she ended up starting to record the New York film, which she does now. She's younger than me. She's probably 33 right now. She's so talented. So this is the caliber of people you work with when you're in music school. So many smart and talented people. So winning competitions, Serena led to being published, and I had a commission last year that was premiered in Florence, Italy. The theme of that concert was Da Vinci because it was his anniversary, and Florence was where he was stationed, I guess. There's the Da Vinci Museum there. There's a Danish choir that I had won a competition with. They recorded one of my pieces they commissioned a piece, a Da Vinci piece. And I found an amazing text that I set for choir. Most of my composition these days is more choral composition. And I'm a choral singer. I have been for many years. Not a great solo singer, but I can read the shit out of anything first time. Why? Because of my piano experience. Any musician, piano is key for everything. So I'm looking at our time.
Yeah, I was
are we
about to
an
say,
hour?
we're almost at time, so I was going to ask, first of all, if students want to get in touch with you, what's the best way to get in touch with you to follow up?
I'll put my email in here.
Fabulous. And also, just any final recommendations or just advice that you would give these students as they're moving forward out of their bachelor's into the full-time working world?
I would say, so Suzanne, you say you're head of media and arts. Media is a different thing, like Maya, who's graphic design. Serena asked about composition, so I'm guessing you're a musician. Music is a different thing to work with than media and arts. I'm going to tell musicians it's much easier to make money in graphic design or video or anything computer related. It's much easier to find work in that. But still, there is hope if you're a musician to follow the money. Money will show you opportunities for new things, music publishing or small jobs, teaching kids with this children's choir. Because the parents love me so much. Many of the parents have their kids in private schools, and in those private schools, they need substitute teachers, and then so they wanted me to be a substitute teacher at this private school, and the choir whole program there pays really well, very, very well for the time. And then the full-time choral director retired, and then they offered the position to me. So, opportunity breeds opportunity, and it's really just kind of following the money. Even if you do something for free, it's not for free. You're paying into your future, into references, into portfolio. That's what I would recommend for all of you: is do something for free and do it better than anybody else. Have the best quality you possibly can, whatever you do. That's really important. That's how to stay competitive. I can email anybody who wants to see my portfolio. That got me a job with Microsoft. It's just on Wix. It's not the most impressive, platform. It's not bells and whistles, but it's a strong portfolio with a lot of range in it. Hi, Matthew. Popped in and out. So I can share that on email or whatever you want.
Well, Kelly, thank you so much. This has been extremely helpful. It's taught me so much. I think the biggest thing I heard you say was just your ability to adapt to new opportunities, to teach yourself new skills, that may not have been related to your education per se, but just being adaptable and learning new things, which I think we all have to do in this day and age. But thank you so much, and thank you for providing your email so that we can follow up with you. This session has been recorded, and I'll put it on YouTube for everyone if you want to check out our Career Center YouTube channel. But thank you so much. I really appreciate all of your advice, Kelly, and I'll definitely be following up with you.
All right, and Ashley said thank you, and Maya, thank you for your comment too, and great you sang choir in high school too. Music is awesome. Design is everything. Thank you. It's been a pleasure. Thank you so much, Suzanne.
Thank you so much, everybody. Thanks for joining us today.
All right, thank you.
Take care.
Bye.
Bye-bye.